Hello everyone and welcome to a new video in our IFS Cloud technical video series. My name is Marcel Aushan and today I want to discuss about custom fields or custom attributes as they are called in IFS Cloud. We will see how we can add different custom fields in different IFS pages and publish them. But before going into the system and show you how it's done, I want to make a statement from the beginning. So in order for you to understand what will happen when we do these custom fields, it's important to know that these custom fields will not alter in any way, shape or form the source code of IFS Cloud. So what we are doing is not considered a customization or a modification. Adding custom fields is quite easy and is not making the upgrade of the system in the future more difficult. Yeah? So it's not creating any technical debt, if you will. Yeah? It's an easy way of extending the functionality of IFS Cloud without really writing any line of code. Yeah. Today's tutorial is for intermediate level, meaning that you would need to have a bit of an SQL experience, know how an SQL statement works, what's a table or a view in the database, but not very complicated stuff. Yeah. Okay, so in what we are trying to achieve today, if I switch back to the application, basically we will try to add 3 different custom fields in the customer order screen. So here we will try to add 2 persistent custom fields. So when we talk about custom fields, we can have persistent custom fields where users could enter a value and that value is stored in a custom table in the database. Or besides persistent fields, we could also have read-only fields, meaning that we need to write a short SQL statement or an expression to get some piece of data from another page and make it visible in the customer order. So for today, what we will do, we will create 2 persistent fields. One of them will be a yes no button that we will put it somewhere in the customer order header section, and we will call it like approved. And it will be a toggle for yes or no. Another persistent field that would be a free text, like an internal notes kind of text where users could write some longer text for other users to see when they are working on the same customer order, for example. And the third field will be a read-only field, for which let's assume that for the customer order we also want to display the customer group. Now let me show you which field I mean. So if we go to the customer, in the invoice there is this customer group field which is not shown or not available in the customer order page. But let's assume for some purpose, for some business scenario, you would need your order coordinators to see the order group that's linked to the customer group that's linked to your customer. So we will create all of these 3 fields, and then once they are created, we will also publish them with the page designer. If you're not aware how page designer works, I have a separate video on that. Please check it out, and then everything will make sense. What we will show today with the page designer. Good. So first thing first, in order to create a custom field, we need to identify which is the database entity, or if you will, the table more or less, where we want to store that data that will be entered in the new field. In order to do that, we need to go to the top right, where is your user, and then go down to debug and page info. And here we will have a pop-up which will give us details about all the fields that we see on the page. I will not go into this level of details, but as I said, what we want to do is add some custom fields in the customer order header. Therefore, the first entity that we need is the customer order. Usually you will see that The entity names are pretty much also the page names, just without the spaces in between. Yes, I will just copy this. So I identify the entity, the logical unit in the database where I need to create these fields. I'll say OK. And then I'll go to a page that's called entity configuration. Let me open it in a new tab. And here in entity configuration, I will search for the customer order entity once the page loads, and then we will go ahead and create each field. Okay, so I already pre-filtered it with the customer order. Okay, and now we have this here. Let me just delete them from here. Unpublish quickly. And then we will recreate them. Okay. Good. So this is how normally an entity would look like if it has no custom fields. Yeah, in this case, we talk about the customer order entity. And in order for me to create a new custom field, yeah, I come here to this part of custom attributes. I click on the plus sign, and here I need to give it a name. Yeah, this would be the column name in the database, and the prompt would be the label that would appear on the screen. Yeah, so I will just say it's C underscore. Usually I try to prefix all my custom fields with a C underscore, meaning it's custom stuff. C internal notes, for example. And now we will create the persistent field where we could store some free text for other order coordinators. Yeah? Usually also in the prompt, in the label, I tend to leave this C space in front so that everybody looking at the screen, an IFS consultant coming after me, will know this is a custom field and not part of the standard functionality. Yeah. Here I can put a comment so that people know what this field was created for the YouTube tutorial. Yeah, and here we can choose to create a persistent field or a read-only. Yeah, read-only we will do later, so now we will do persistent field, and if it's persistent, meaning user could enter a value, we have different data types. Yeah, ours will be a string, but you could say if you want a number, or a date column, or an enumeration, or even a reference. Yeah? In our case, we will go with a string, and we could even format it. We will leave it unformatted, but if we want the users to only type in uppercase characters or lowercase, yeah, we could force it from here. I will just leave it unformatted, so users could use camel case, yeah, if they so choose. Of course, we need to give it a maximum length. Yeah, let's make it 2000 characters. This is a lot of space for any internal communication that needs to happen at the customer order level. Yeah? And then I will click on next. Next, I will have some properties that, of course, if this field is persistent, then it should be insertable. Yeah, so it should be able to insert new rows, yeah, new data in that column. Could be updatable. Yeah, so users could update, change the value in that field. Also, they could search for it, for content inside that field, for example, from a list of customer orders, for example, they could search for some piece of text within the internal notes. Yeah, if I also choose enabled on reports, then I could technically also make it show up on the customer invoice or customer order confirmation, for example, but it's not the case here. And this will be just a field used for internal reference. Yeah. Of course, we could also set a default value. We don't want to set up any default value. This is just a free text field. So we go to next, and here we just make it public and approved. Once it's public and approved, we could also publish it. And once it's published, so it's approved, and once it will be published, we can also show it with Page Designer. Yeah? But let me first create all the three. custom fields, and then we will go to page designer to add them to the customer order page. Yeah. So right now you see my entity configuration for the customer order, yeah, is not published and also not approved. Yeah, but I have a first field which is approved. So as soon as I approve and publish the entity configuration for the customer order, also this one will be published. Yeah, let's see how we do that. We just hit approve. Okay. Now it's approved and we just hit publish. Yeah, so what this will do will create a custom fields table in the database. Yeah, so if the customer order table is customer underscore order underscore tab for table, there will be a second table created linked to the customer order tab, which will be called customer underscore order underscore CFT for custom fields table. And this is what will happen now. Once I hit publish, it will create this additional table in the database. This will take a few seconds. And once this is done, we will see the published publish field turning to yes, and also the custom attribute will appear as published. So this is still running. Yeah, it takes a few seconds until this one is finished. And once this one will be finished and published, we could go ahead and create a second custom field, which will be our yes no button, yeah, for the approve field. Okay, so now we see that our entity configuration is published. It's synchronized, yeah, so meaning that there were no other changes since we last published it, and we see our custom field is also published. Yeah. Now we will go ahead and create a second custom field, which will be the C underscore approved button. Will be a yes or no field. So, but first we will need to create these yes or no values. Yeah. We can also create custom fields that include some reference to a custom enumeration, for example. And what we need to create now is a custom enumeration. Yeah, in this case, it's just the values yes or no, true or false. But you got the point, it could be more complex than that. So maybe you want to have a list of values that you want to maintain, and the users could select one of the different values in the customer order, for example. Yeah, here we can see that we already have a true or false custom enumeration. We could use this one, but I will just try to create a new one, like yes, no, and I will show you how it's done. Yeah, so we will just press the plus sign here, enumeration name, yes, no, prompt yes, no, comment, again, Aushan for YouTube tutorial. And then we just save it. And again, once it's saved, we can approve it. But first, before approving it, let me go through, create some of the enumeration items. Yeah, this would be our yes or no value, DB value yes, client value yes, sequence 1. And then we create a new one, DB value no, client value no, and sequence 2nd. Yeah. Basically, DB value is what is the actual value that will be stored in the custom fields table that I talked about previously, and the client value is what the users will see on the screen. Yeah. But of course, if we will just create a yes/no button, yeah, then they will not really see the client values on the screen, but they will just see this toggle if it's on or off. Let me just save it from here. And now once we saved it, we can see we can also approve the custom enumeration. What I will do now. Okay, now our custom enumeration is approved and I will also publish. Yeah, again, this will take a few minutes, but I don't think it will be minutes. It will be a few seconds to publish this custom enumeration. Okay, our custom enumeration is published. Of course, here we could also do translations if we want. Yeah, so if we have multiple values, for example, yeah, we could translate them, and then these values will appear translated depending on the user selected language. But for our case, we just created this yes or no enumeration, and it's published. This is good enough. Now we can go back to our entity configuration, and we could try to create the second custom field, the C underscore approved, which is again a persistent field, but it will use the custom enumeration as a list of values. No? So attribute name C underscore approved. Comment ocean for YouTube tutorial persistent field, and in this case it will no longer be a string, it will be an enumeration. Yeah, and it will be a Boolean enumeration. Like if it's normal, the users will just see a drop down with yes or no. If it's Boolean, it will be just a radio box. Yeah? And enumeration here, we could choose from the ones that exist. And of course, this is the one that we just created, yes or no. Yeah, checked state represents yes, unchecked represents no. If we want to swap, we could just enable it from here. But we don't want that. Yeah? So if they check the radio box, then it means it's approved. Okay, we go next. Again, the same properties. And we can even set a default value. And in this case, we will set the default value to no. So whenever a new customer order is created, it will get the value not approved. And then somebody needs to approve it manually, or we could have an automated process to set that radio box to approved once a formal approval happens. Okay, I go next, make it public, make it approved, and finish. And as soon as I create the second one, you see the second field is not published. And also when we look at the header of the entity configuration, we see it's not synchronized. Yeah? This means since the last time it was published, there were some changes which are not synchronized. Yeah? We could synchronize, and once it's synchronized, we will see also this field will go to published. And once it's published, it's available for display in Page Designer. Okay, so we have our second field, and now I'll just create a third field, which is a read-only field. And remember, we will just bring the customer group from the customer master data into the customer order. Just press the plus again. See cust group. See customer group, and again ocean for YouTube tutorial. And in this case, it will no longer be a persistent field, but a read-only. Yeah? And you see, if I change to read-only, then I no longer have all these data types that I can choose from. It will be a read-only. And then I go to next, which will be implementation type, will be an select statement. In this case, I could use expression or a referenced value, but I will just create a select statement. I already have it here. But maybe also to show you how you can find out which table holds the data that you want. So basically you can go to the customer, and we said we want to bring the customer group. So we need to find a field. It's in invoice tab, and it's here the customer group. And if we go to debug and page info, if we search by group, okay, customer header group, yeah, and it's here, you see, it's group ID. Is this field here from identity invoice info. This is the place where we want to get the data from. Or let me see, now maybe we want to go to, if we go to sales, No, yeah, this is the field that we want to fetch. This is the one that I prepared, customer statistic group, sorry about that. And if we go here to page info, and again for group, there should be, let's see where we find the customer statistic group. And it's GRP, I think. Yes, so you see it's customer group. This is the field name, and it's found in view customer order customer end. Yeah? So basically we need to do a select customer group, GRP, from customer order customer end, where customer number equals with the customer number from our customer order entity. Yeah? This is how we would do it normally. And then we go back to our entity configuration, and I already have it written, the statement. Let me just copy it. So basically we will do select cast GRP. This is the column that we need from our customer master data, the sales tab, which is customer order, customer end view in the database, where customer number, customer ID equals with our customer number from the customer order entity. Yeah? That's the column name of the customer number in customer order table. Yeah? And then we just put the 2 dots in front. Yeah. And then whenever we have like a parameter like this, yeah, with 2 dots in front, then we also need to specify it that it's coming from the view, the customer order view dot customer number, yeah, so that it knows instead of this 2 dots customer number, it will put this v dot customer number, yeah, because it's querying the data from the customer master data sales tab, yeah, but it's showing it in the customer order page. Yeah? And there we have the customer number, customer NO. Okay, then we go next. Here we will say the value that's being fetched would be a string. We can format it uppercase, lowercase. I would just leave it unformatted. Also, we can put a maximum length. In this case, doesn't really matter. We go next. And this time you see it's not insertable, not updatable. You can still search by it, but you cannot insert data into this column. And this field will just display the customer statistic group. And you cannot change the customer statistic group from the customer order page. It will be just a read-only field. Now we go next. And we want to be approved and finish. Okay. Once it's finished, you see again the entity is no longer synchronized. We just synchronize again. Now it will take a few more seconds for the data to be synchronized. And once this is synchronized, which is now, we can go with a page designer and create the or display these fields with the page designer. No? So if we go back to our customer order, let me go one more back, and we get back to the customer order page. Now here, let me just open page designer. So I go to top right where my user is, page designer. Yeah. As I said, please check out my video on page designer overview in case you are not familiar with how page designer looks. Okay, so basically what we want to do is in the order header here, we want to add the approved field and also the internal notes. And in the order details, here somewhere we want to add the customer statistic group. No? Good. So we go to content. Yeah, this is customer order group, which is the first one that we need. I go inside it. I expand the content where you know all the fields are. And here I just want to create a new field. I want to add a new element and the content, and the element will be a field, and pick a value. Let's see, something with CF, and we add the approved field. We say it's editable. Yeah, also could be required because we have a default value to no, and the label, let's just leave it like C approved. Okay, and now you see immediately the field appeared here, yeah, even though it was not saved and not published. Yeah, I will save it and publish to the global context, and I have my field here as not approved yet. I can add my second field again in the same customer order group section, and this time I will add the internal nodes. Internal nodes, again I will leave the C internal nodes. This is not required, and I will say okay. For internal nodes, I will still go inside and change some of the attributes of the field, because I want it to be control size, I want it to be full width, yeah, so that it extends to the entire screen. And I also want it to be multi-line, so in case we have more than one line, the field will expand accordingly. Yeah, I will save and publish. And before testing the functionality of these new fields, let me go ahead and add the third one. So the third one, we said we want it in order details. Yeah, for that, you know already, we need to go to the tabs and find the order details tab, and we want to add it in the content. It's, I think, the very first section, arrange, and customer order general section, which would be this one, customer order general group. And here we just want to add a new field, and the field will be CF customer group. You see, it's not editable by default. The label is C customer group, and now it should be somewhere at the end of the section. Yeah, you see customer group 01. Of course, in order to be more more user friendly, we could also bring the description of the group. That could be done. Let me just move it up a bit. Maybe we want to see the first field here, customer group. I will just save it and publish the changes. And now we could see if we want to edit the customer order. Of course, in order to be able to edit also the custom fields, the same rules should apply as for editing other fields. Yeah? If the order will be in status invoice closed, you will see we won't be able to edit the fields. Even if they are custom fields, we are not able to edit them. In order to be able to edit them, the fields should be released. Or no, the customer order should not be invoice closed, not cancelled, should be in an editable status. And released is one of the editable statuses. If I click on edit, yeah, I could set this one to approved. Of course, this in itself doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it's just a field that we said, yes, it's approved. But then if you really want to have an approval process behind it, there are ways to do it with some automation, with custom events, with workflows. Yeah, but this is just the first part of this approval functionality, if you will. No, for now, it's just informational only. And here we can put in some internal notes. Yeah, and you see this will go on and on and on. And since we did it as a multi-line, you see this field will expand so that the users will not have to, will see. Okay. Now, last time we also made this field as mandatory, the customer PO number. Let me just save now. Yeah, and as you see, Now this field remains expanded so that the users will be able to read at the first glance all the internal notes, and then they also see that's approved. And for customer group, here we can see that's a read-only. Even if we try to edit, we will see this is not editable because it's a read-only field. So we cannot really change it. If we want to change the value, we would go into the customer master data, change the value, and then here it will be displayed. It will display the new value automatically. So this is just reading whatever is in the customer statistic group in customer sales tab. So this is an easy way to create new custom fields, extend the functionality of IFS. And in the next video, I will show you also how to, once you created all of these configurations, as we call them in IFS, how do you transport them from one environment to the next? And usually we do that using something that's called an application configuration package. So basically what we did here in our customer order page, created a page configuration. And if we go to our page configurations, let me open it in a new tab. I will see my page configuration here for the customer order. And I think I have a search already for the customer order. Yes. And you see it created the page configuration. It's in status published. It's up to date. And basically from here we could add it to an application configuration package and then export the configuration package and import into the next environment, for example, production environment or CFG or whatever environment we want. But this will be the topic for the next video, how to transport configurations between different environments. Okay, good. Thank you for watching. I hope it was useful for you to get started creating some of these configurations. And until next time, stay safe. Bye.